In Part 1, we demonstrated simple retrieval of coded quotations and also more complex retrieval using the query tool and the co-occurrence table. In Part 2, we continue with the remaining actions specific to coded quotations, which are counting coded quotations, linking them to other components, and finally, using coded quotations to interrogate a whole document. The first specific action is counting. Numbers appear in every ATLAS.ti window, counting the number of items displayed. For example, here's a longitudinal study of breast cancer patients. If I open the Quotation Manager, it initially opens docked, but in these videos it's easier to see what's going on if I float it in a separate window. How each window opens is based on whether it was docked or floating when you last closed it. This is the total number of quotations created so far. And if I close the Quotation Manager and open the Codes Manager, I can similarly see 277 is the number of codes currently in the project. In the Codes Manager, the two numbers after each code are particularly useful. The first is called grounded, meaning how many quotations are linked to the code, and the second is density, meaning how many other codes are linked to the code. If you like your managers in single column view, then these numbers are in parentheses after the code. The first number indicating the number of quotations linked to the code, and the second number indicating the number of other codes linked to the code. We often want to work with the number of coded quotations for a variety of purposes. For example, to see which codes have been used most frequently, assuming that information corresponds to something meaningful in the methodology. Here we have a project studying the barriers and facilitators to the implementation of new preventive care programs in clinics. At the top of the code list, we have various organizing codes with prefixes, and then a series of codes prefixed by B for barriers to implementation, and below that, codes prefixed with an F for facilitators to implementation. Perhaps we have an analytic task that concerns the most frequently cited barriers to implementation. Sorting the grounded column by clicking on it shows the relative frequency with which the codes have been used. But having sorted by frequency like this, we see that the barrier codes are mixed up with the facilitator codes, and we want to study the frequency with which just the barrier codes have been used. We have a code group already set up with just the barrier codes, so by first filtering on this code group to just see the barriers, combined with having sorted the list by groundedness, provides the counting information needed. This is an example of a 5-level QDA constructed tool to fulfill a task, meaning it combines the filtering with the sorting. If I open the Quotation Manager, then we have the complementary counting information. In other words, how many codes are linked to each quotation, showing how richly each quotation has been coded. These can be sorted by frequency. So this is showing me that quotation number 1819 has been coded to 8 codes. This may or may not be valuable information. In some projects where there are multiple groups or dimensions of codes, it's useful to go to the bottom of the list to see how many quotations have only been coded to a single code to assess whether these have value in the project. In some methodologies, a quotation coded to a single code may have enormous value. In other kinds of methodologies, less so. In the Quotation Manager, the side panel, which in the other managers is used to show the groups, for example, the document groups or the code groups or the memo groups. In the case of the Quotation Manager, these are the codes that serve to group quotations. So, for example, if I see that there's a code here, data engenders change with 76 quotations, I can click on that and see the 76 quotations, and then perhaps sort by density in order to see, of all the quotations coded to this code, which are more richly coded with other codes. If you are conducting mixed methods research, you may be more concerned with analyzing the coded data quantitatively as well as qualitatively. And one way to do this is to export the entire ATLAS project as an SPSS runnable job, in which all the quotations you have created become cases and all the codes and code groups become variables. This is done from the Export menu, and you simply export the entire project into an SPSS data file and syntax file, which can be directly run in SPSS. ATLAS.ti also provides two additional tools for counting. One is the code co-occurrence table, which we've already looked at in detail in part 1 of this video. The second is a table that counts the number of coded quotations in each document for any group of codes you're interested in. This is called the code document table. Coming back to the breast cancer project, in this study, each participant had several interviews, and each participant's interviews were collected into a document group. For example, patient number 13 had 4 interviews. If we are interested in counting coded quotations by participant, then in this project we would do it with document groups rather than individual documents. If we go to Analyze and open the Code Document table, in the top part we can select the codes we're interested in studying, say those, and then down below we can select the documents we're interested in looking at. And we've decided rather than look at individual documents, we want to look at respondents, which are indicated here by groups of documents. And here we can see the number of coded quotations for each of these codes for each of these, in this case, groups of documents. This table only counts the numbers. We don't have access to the underlying coded quotations here, but this table can be exported into Excel for further analysis. The second specific action on coded quotations is to continue linking them to other components. We can continue to link other codes to them. For example, I can open the Code Manager, and I can select another code, and I can drag it in and link it. If I have memos, here's the Memo Manager, I can drag one of my memos in and also attach it to the quotation, which will serve some specific purpose in your analytic plan. And I can also link other quotations directly to this quotation, as we've already learned to do in the hyperlinks video. And finally, we can use a coded quotation to interrogate an entire document. Here I'm going to select the whole document using Control-A, and I'm going to code the whole document to one of its demographic characteristics. Perhaps I'll code this to a code male. I'll right-click in the text and say Open Coding, create a new code male, and if I scroll to the top, I will see it is coded to that code. This has had the effect of turning a document, one component, into a coded quotation, another component. This can be useful for various more sophisticated techniques, such as constructing a query that says, get me all quotations coded to trainer chose the project that are embedded within quotations coded to male. Embedded is one of the other operators in the query tool we didn't discuss. You'll be able to learn about all the other operators when you start using the query tool. Well, this completes the orientation to coded quotations, and we now invite you to read about another component in Chapter 5 and then watch its component orientation video.